What if your defense attorney had the prosecutor's playbook? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Well, that's an interesting thing to think about. It's like being on one team, one football team, and sort of knowing what the other team is going to be doing, right?
Right. It's as if you played for the other team. And that's exactly the team I've built at Just Criminal Law. I look for former prosecutors to be my attorneys, and my support staff and my investigator also spent a significant amount of time in law enforcement and in the prosecutor's office. So we know the ins and outs of what the other side is going to do.
So your own personal history is as a prosecutor. So maybe tell people about that if they don't know.
Sure. As a prosecutor, I have worked with law enforcement. I've had to present my case to a judge as a prosecutor. I understand that prosecutors have to weigh in how the alleged victim in a case is going to feel about the result. And I know what it's like to work with law enforcement as you're investigating witnesses. And so having been in that position, I know what is bad about a case that may result in the prosecutor wanting to plead it down, or if we go to trial, what's going to be the hurdles that the state is going to have to jump through in order to get a conviction. And so having literally done the prosecutor's job, I know how to communicate with the prosecutor and how to work out a deal that's good for my client, or how to fight the prosecutor if we have to go to trial.
That is amazing. It's like having the other team's former head coach, right, on your team. So, and you don't stop, like you were saying before, with just you, and then you hire a lot of other people who only know defense. You say this extends to your whole team. So you were talking about having your other attorneys. Do you have any you wanted to point out about their backgrounds?
Yes, so I hire attorneys that were prosecutors or were law clerks, that is, they worked for a judge, or both, because then they understand how the prosecutor works. They understand how the judge looks at something. And again, I worked for a judge before I went to work as a prosecutor. So having literally been in every single office, that is the judge's office, the prosecutor's office, down at the sheriff's department or the police department working with law enforcement, I know how valuable that perspective is. And so when I find members to be a part of my team, I make sure that they have that perspective, because I know how important it is having, done the prosecutor, the law clerk, and now the defense attorney job. And we use that perspective, all of that knowledge, all of that understanding as the case progresses to, change the outcome. That is, get a better result than someone who doesn't understand the inner workings or doesn't have that perspective.
That's great. And you have more than just attorneys on your team, too. So tell us about the other members of your team that aren't attorneys.
Sure. So I have a full-time investigator. That investigator meets with clients, meets with our clients' witnesses, collects evidence, and he came from the sheriff's department. That is, he was a supervising officer. He was in charge of investigations. He was in charge of training other officers. He had 22 years of experience rising through the ranks of the agency and getting all of the experience, all the training, all the perspective. And so he's now been a part of my team for 10 years. So, he has 32 years of experience in the criminal justice system. And he really understands, when you look at the police report, that's like the other team's highlight reel. And then there is what actually happened through the whole investigation. And we know that the prosecutor is probably just going to look at the police report and assume that that's mostly correct. But our team digs in and looks at how did the officer come to the conclusions they did to put in their report? And did they overlook something? Because 9 times out of 10, not everything gets in the report. And if it's favorable for our client, you better believe it's not going to be in the report. So having that investigator with that experience and knowing where to look and what should be there and why it's not really helps our clients, again, when we're negotiating or when we're preparing for a hearing or a trial.
That's amazing. I mean, that's got to be really unique. And there's probably other people on your team that most people would not even think of as being part of a defense legal team. Who might that be at your firm?
Sure. And then my senior legal assistant actually came from the prosecutor's office. She worked there for 15 years. And so we take cases across the state of Wyoming and in South Dakota. And so, having that perspective of having worked with the prosecutor, being very comfortable talking to the prosecutors, knowing what the prosecutors do and do not do, and what it means when they file certain paperwork but not other paperwork. It's really just a great ability to understand when you look at a file what's going on behind the scenes and what do we need to look more closely at or what do we need to ask for and how can we quickly get that information. So having somebody who's worked closely with prosecutors, they know how to reach out to the office, how to talk to the other legal assistants, how to talk to the court support staff, and really, get our client's case resolved as fast as we can with the best result possible.
This whole thing you're describing sounds like it is not the average criminal defense firm. Am I right in that?
Absolutely. A person would be hard-pressed to find a team like the team that I've put together in any defense attorney's office. I know that doesn't exist in the state of Wyoming, but I would just say, it's the exception rather than the rule. And it was intentionally done, and it's really gotten wonderful results and outcomes for our clients. It's effective, and it's very intentional.
Wow. All right. So you've made a good case for why someone should go to you if they have trouble in this area. So how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. We'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.